JavaScript. It's everywhere. Websites, apps, even servers. But let's be real, it can get messy fast. One typo, one wrong variable, and boom, you've got yourself a bug, and you will spend more time debugging that code than actually coding in JavaScript. Now, that is where TypeScript comes in. TypeScript, it's like putting guardrails on JavaScript so you don't crash. And in this video, I'll show you what TypeScript is, why it's different from JavaScript, the pros and cons, and then we'll actually install it and write our first lines of code. So, what is TypeScript? Now, before I define what TypeScript is, I actually want you to grab a pen and a paper and write this down so you can understand it better and also memorize it as well. So, what is TypeScript? TypeScript is basically JavaScript but with superpowers. TypeScript adds something called static typing, which helps catch errors before you can even run your code. In case of JavaScript, that does not happen. In JavaScript, when you're coding, you make an error, you have to run your code, and then after the runtime, you will see your error. But in TypeScript, if you make an error, it will directly show it to you inside your IDE in your UI, which is really great and it saves a lot of your time. And then you can also debug it easily because you can actually see your bug as well. Now, one more important thing is that TypeScript is not replacing JavaScript. At the end of the day, TypeScript compiles into JavaScript. So if you already know JavaScript, then you're halfway there to learning TypeScript. But even if you don't know nothing about JavaScript, then do not worry because in this series, I'm going to be covering every single thing from 0 to 100. I will cover everything so you don't need to even have JavaScript knowledge. But if you do, then that's completely fine. Now, let's get started. So, the difference between TypeScript and JavaScript. Like I said, in TypeScript, you can actually see the errors that you make and you can debug them easily. Now, to show you guys this, first of all, what you need to do is open your browser. I'm using Chrome and type in node download. Click on the first website. And right here, what you have to do is you have to click on download node. I have a Mac, so obviously it says macOS installer, but if you have a Windows, then you can simply choose the Windows option from this drop down here and then download it for your operating system. Now, once Node is downloaded, you have to install it. I'm not going to go through that because I already have it downloaded and installed into my machine. So I'm not going to do that, but you can download it from here if you are running a Windows OS or Linux, Mac, whatever. Now, once that is done, the next step what we have to do is we have to open our terminal and then type in the command to install TypeScript. The command is pretty simple. It's npm install and then TypeScript. You can also install this globally if you want to. To do that, you have to type npm install -g and then TypeScript. -g or flag G simply means install TypeScript globally on your machine. After that, press enter and it will be installed in your machine in a couple of seconds. It depends on your internet speed. So, as you guys can see, it has been installed in my machine. Now, if I want to check what version of TypeScript I'm using, then I will type this command TSC, which stands for TypeScript Compiler, and then -v to check the version of it. Hmm. Now, as you guys can see, I'm running the version 5.9.2, which I believe is the latest version. And just like that, we have installed TypeScript in our machine. Now, let me show you guys the difference between TypeScript and JavaScript. So as you guys can see, I'm inside this folder called TypeScript tutorials. Right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two files. So the first file, I'm going to call it yellow.js. I'm going to be creating a JavaScript file, and then another file is going to be a TypeScript file. I'll simply call it index.ts. To create TypeScript files, we have to give it an index of TS. That stands for TypeScript, and JS stands for JavaScript. Now, let me show you an example of how different TypeScript is compared to JavaScript. First, inside the JavaScript file, I will create a variable. Once again, if you don't know what a variable is or how to create a variable, then that is completely fine. Like I said, I will be going through every single topic in this series, so you do not have to worry. So, I'll create a variable called age, and I will say age is equal to 24. Now, I'm specifically on purpose defining 24, which is a number inside double quotes, just to show you guys the difference. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say age equals to age again, and then plus 1. Now, if I console log this, logically, it should give us 25, right? But it won't. To run this inside terminal, I'm going to type node yellow.js, which is our JavaScript file name. And then I'll press enter. And as you guys can see, instead of 25, it gives us 241. This is because JavaScript treats strings and numbers equally. It does not know the difference between a string and a number. Now, if we do the same thing with TypeScript, I'll create a variable, I'll call it tsAge, and then I will give it a type. To give a type to a variable, we have to use these colons. And I will give it a type of number, then I will assign it a value of, let's say, 25. And right here, I will do the same thing. Again, reassign the value equals plus 1, and I will console log this. Now, to run TypeScript files, what you have to do is you have to compile it first. To compile a TypeScript file, you have to type in TSC, which stands for TypeScript compiler, and then you have to give it your file name, which in this case, it's called index.ts. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to create a new JavaScript file for us. So I'll press enter. And as you guys can see, a new JavaScript file by the name of index.js has been created. This is because, like I explained earlier, that browsers do not know what TypeScript is. Whenever you are running TypeScript code, you have to compile it into JavaScript. And to compile it, you have to run this command. Once it's compiled, we can run it in our browsers or terminal or any other place that you want to run. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type node to run my file, and then I will define the file, which is index.js, not ts, but js. Now, if I press enter, as you guys can see, we got 26, which is logically true. Now, if I had given this, let's say, if I had done the same thing that I did here, which was put these numbers inside double quotes, TypeScript will give me an error. So, TypeScript will give me an error right here. First of all, it says that this type string is not assignable to type number. And then we have another error here, which isn't really important. It's the scope thing. You don't have to worry about that. So the first error that we got is type string is not accessible to type number. So what we have to do is we have to change this back to number. If I do that, the first error is going to be disappeared. As you guys can see, that error is now disappeared. But still, if we run this file, doing the same thing again, compiling it first, and there we go. As you guys can see, it's giving us an error. So this is how TypeScript prevents errors from happening. Now let's talk about the pros and cons. There aren't really any cons of TypeScript, to be honest, except for the thing that the setup takes a little bit of time, and it's only the first time when you're running it, and then it has a learning curve. That is also for the first time when you're learning, and other than that, it doesn't have any cons. Pros are that TypeScript has fewer bugs, safer code, and better autocomplete in VS Code. Also easier to work on with big projects and also scalable projects. Every senior developer that I have met has used TypeScript in their big projects. Nobody uses JavaScript for a bigger project because of type safety and other issues. And also, TypeScript is really good for scalable projects. So, if you have a bigger project and if you want to scale up your project, you should definitely use TypeScript because this is what everyone uses in this industry. Now, we talked about what TypeScript is, TypeScript versus JavaScript, the difference, pros and cons. I also showed you guys the installation part, and we did a little bit of code usage. But I still want to give you another usage as well. So let's say I will create another variable, and I will call this username, and I will give it a type of string. And then I will assign a value to this string, and I will say James, giving my username variable a value called James. I was missing an R here, but now it's fixed. Now I'll console log this, and I will say hello, and then my variable name, which is called username here. Now to run this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to firstly compile this, and then my file name, which is index.ts. After that it's been compiled, I will run node index.js. And as you guys can see, it says hello James. Now, another thing is that you do not have to run both of these commands every single time when you are compiling or when you want to run your TypeScript file. There is a much easier way, which I'm going to be continuing or I'm going to be showing you guys in the next video. So today we covered what TypeScript is, and we compared it with JavaScript, talked about the pros and cons, and got it installed with a first example. In the next video, we're going to go deeper into types, numbers, strings, booleans, and how TypeScript makes them powerful. Also, I will show you guys a package where you don't need to run these commands. You can only run one command and it will do the job of these two commands. So if you want to actually master TypeScript from zero to hero, then make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next episode. And with that being said, have a nice day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.